Chapter 2. Primary versus Secondary Sources. Depending on your project, you are probably going to use a variety of sources. Try not to limit yourself to only books or internet sources. Mix it up. Using a variety of sources is also a good way to verify your facts. Primary sources. A primary source is an eyewitness account of an event. It is usually written or recorded at the time the event occurred. Types of primary sources include diaries, speeches, autobiographies, interviews, and letters. A video recording of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech or The Diary of Anne Frank are examples of primary sources. Using primary sources in your research can help you better understand the subject and make your project stronger. Ask your librarian to help you find these sources online or in the library. Verify. To make sure that something is true. Anne Frank's diaries. Interviews. Your best primary sources could be right in front of you. You can interview people who know about the topic you are researching. For example, your friend's mother might be an expert gardener. She would be a great source for information about pesticides or the right time to plant a vegetable garden. If your grandfather served in the Vietnam War, he could tell you what it was like to fight in a war. Secondary sources. Secondary sources are documents based on primary sources. Secondary sources include books, websites, encyclopedias, and dictionaries. An article that discusses the meaning of Martin Luther King's famous speech is an example of a secondary source. Newspapers, magazines, and books can be either primary or secondary sources depending on the content. If the document is written by someone who witnessed the event, it's a primary source. For example, letters written by Amelia Earhart to her sister are primary sources. A story about Amelia Earhart is a secondary source. Practice exercise. Identifying primary and secondary sources. Look at the following list of sources. Identify which are primary sources and which are secondary sources. 1. The handwritten diary of a soldier who fought at Gettysburg during the Civil War. 2. An online article retelling personal stories from the battlefield at Gettysburg. 3. A documentary about orangutans, narrated by a scientist who observed the animals in the wild for 6 months. 4. A televised interview of a person who witnessed a car accident. 5. A biography of Abraham Lincoln, written in 2010. 6. Letters about Abraham Lincoln, written by his wife during the time of his presidency. 7. A podcast from a volcanologist who witnessed a volcano eruption in August 2012. Answers. 1. Primary. 2. Secondary. 3. Primary. 4. Primary. 5. Secondary. 6. Primary. 7. Primary.